Hello everyone, my name is Tiara Flavia and my partner Vindi Saputra and Iza Almilatu Alia. Today we will present chapter 10 about behavioral aspect of accumulating and controlling costs. Keep on watching. Now we will talk about traditional versus standard cost system. Purpose and uses of cost accounting system. Cost accounting identifies, quantifies, accumulates, and reports various cost elements related to the production of goods or delivery or services. By providing management with timely and relevant cost information, cost accounting assists in the planning, control, and evaluation of the day-to-day operational activities of the people responsible for them. Traditional or historical cost system. The traditional or historical terms refers to a cost system that limits inputs to historical costs and seeks the full absorption of fixed and variable costs by units of the product or services. Traditional or historical cost system primarily focus on identifying and accumulating cost per unit of product or service. These systems are used to calculate inventory values and cost data on cost of goods sold or services rendered for external financial reporting. Traditional cost systems are not suitable for effective management control because the accumulation of historical cost data alone without comparison with predetermined cost objective is incompatible with contemporary control concept. One of the major drawbacks of traditional cost system is that financial accounting requirements demand that unit cost of the product or service take all costs into account, whether traceable to a product or service, or that occur for a certain period of time or for more than one cost object. Now we will talk about standard cost system. First, their scope. The standard cost system reflects the potentially effective blending of accounting with control concepts from modern organizational theory. An inherent control aspect of standard cost calculation is its ability to compare, as part of a regular flow of data, actual performance against predetermined standards and to highlight the variance, favorable or unfavorable, between the two cost levels. In order to generate optimal controls benefits and to maintain relevance, standard costs must be updated continuously. Their compatibility with modern organization theory concepts. According to Edwin Kaplan, the following controls measures are important in developing a framework for standard cost that confirms the concept of modern organization theory. First, setting organizational goals. Second one, determination of the accountability center in accordance with the assignment of function to each. The third one, the staffing of the responsibility center with individuals who represent sufficient ability, motivation, and knowledge to perform their function. Next, the creation of lines of communication between the responsibility center and other organizational units and, where appropriate, the external environment. Next, development of procedures ensuring that sufficient information is relevant and timely along of the lines of communication. The last one, design and implementation of control mechanism that measure and evaluate performance in terms of organizational goals and provide feedback regarding necessary adjustments in objective or performance. Now we will talk about direct or variable costing. Its underlying philosophy. The traditional cost accounting method ignores the fact that certain overhead costs will remain constant regardless of the quantity of unit produced or service delivered, while other overheads fluctuate with respect to volume. To overcome this, flexible budgeting and cost-volume profit analysis were introduced. It's behavioral inducement. Concept, principle, and accounting practice influence the measurement of managerial performance and consequently management decision. Hawkins stated that accounting concept, principle, and practice are ethical as well as technically sound if the concept, principle, or practice are, first, inhibiting manager from taking various unfavorable operating action to justify the adoption of an alternative accounting. Second one, inhibiting the adoption of accounting practice by firms that only creates the illusion of performance. Next, we'll talk about cost control. Dividing costs into variable and fixed components provides a better basis for cost control. Engineering costs include direct material costs, direct labor costs, and variable overhead costs. Committed fixed costs or capacity costs are all ongoing and non-reducing organizational and planned costs without compromising the organization's competence to meet long-term goals. Discretionary costs arising from periodic decisions that do not have demonstrable optimum relationship between input and output. And next, we'll talk about decision making. Knowledge of the cost differential or variable costs and contribution margins will influence the behavior of manager and lead them to make better decisions. Some of the common decision-making situations, such as product mix decisions, new product pricing, market penetration, product deletion, special order, advertising and promotion campaigns, and cost reduction decisions.
And the next point is about behavioral aspects of selected cost accounting steps. The first one is the standard setting. The most influential elements determining the success or failure of any standard cost system are the standard used as performance criteria. Standards have a dual function. They serve as a goals to motivate cost control, and they function as performance evaluation tools. Standards will generate efficient worker behavior only if they are accepted as aspiration levels by the individuals for whose control and performance evaluation they were designed. Raymond Miles and Roger Virgin spelled out 4 basic prerequisites for behaviorally sound control systems. The first one is standard must be established in such a way that people accept them as realistic rather than arbitrary. Number 2, people must feel that they have some influence in establishing their own goals. Number 3, people must believe that they will not be unfairly punished for normal, change variation in performance. Number 4, feedback on performance must be aimed at correction as well as evaluation. Participation in standard setting. The importance of participation in standard setting has been discussed extensively in the behavioral accounting literature. Michael Foran and Don DeCoster summarized the logic underlying all arguments in favor of participation as simply, if a worker participates in the setting of his own performance standard, he will have made an overt commitment to the standard and hence will work hard to achieve them. In one of their empirical studies, they used the theory of cognitive dissonance to gain more insight into why participation is more effective in setting performance standards. Tight versus loose standards. To function as motivational devices, the standards to be used should be neither too tight nor too loose. Tight standard will be missed more often than met. Loose standards do not provide any motivational benefits since they may be so easy to attain that foreman and manager will ignore them as meaningless. The resulting variance may be unfairly associated with poor performance and not identified as having been caused by extremely tight standards. They are useful challenge only for foremen or manager who are motivated by a need for outstanding achievement. For most individuals, too tight standard and the possibility of failure result in frustration and discouragement. Their performance will decline even further since they stop trying to improve. The second one is the overhead absorption. Another area full of dysfunctional inducement is overhead absorption. This common practice charges fixed and variable manufacturing overhead to the products at an estimated rate based on the predetermined capacity level. Whenever the basis used for absorption differs from the predetermined one, over-applied or under-applied variance will occur. The size of this variance is also affected by the capacity level chosen as denominator in the rate determination. The next is allocation of indirect costs. One of the most controversial decisions facing each organization is whether or not to allocate indirect costs to products and/or responsibility centers and what allocation basis to use. In a study sponsored by National Association of Accountants or NAA, James Firmgen and Xu S. Liao found that the responding firms distinguish clearly between two types of indirect costs. The first one is the corporate service cost and corporate administrative cost. Corporate service costs are the cost of services performed centrally for the benefit of both corporate and the various responsibility centers. They include costs for accounting, data processing, VATS lines, research and development, and have some identifiable relationship with the activity levels of the various responsibility centers. While corporate administrative costs are those costs that are necessary to operate the corporate office. They include corporate salaries, public relations, and all other costs incurred to maintain the corporation as a whole. And the next is about the variance analysis. The variance investigation decision. Management's decision depends solely on its assessment of the significance of the observed discrepancy. Variances have control significance only if they stem from assignable causes, or in other words, are of a non-random nature and susceptible to remedial action. It would be pointless to investigate variances from cause goals only to find out that a machine operator had a hangover, was coming down with a cold, or was more concerned with his domestic difficulties than with his output quota or his machine setting. The behavioral aspects. All accounting models for investigation of cost variances are based on the structural or cybernetic view of control. This view envisions control as a homeostatic machine for regulating itself. The specific components of a control policy that may affect human response are factors such as the limits set by the management, the type of feedback results, the strictness of enforcement, and the rewards and penalty attached to the control policy. The first one is the control limits. Control limits is the range of performance results considered acceptable by management. They determine how easy or difficult it will be for the control individuals to perform within the acceptable range and how much leeway they have to fail occasionally. The second one is the feedback results. Unlike with machine, feedback of human performance information will result in feelings of success or failure in the control individuals. Positive feedback will tell them that they are on the right track and will motivate them to repeat the same effort. Negative feedback will not automatically induce them to greater effort, but it may eventually lower their aspiration levels and erode their effort and performance levels. Third, strictness of enforcement. Strictness enforcement of the control policy will instill in the control individual the feeling of pressure. While pressure may be invigorating for some individuals, it may intimidate others and reduce their already poor performance even further. Over the long run, lax enforcement will deteriorate at the motivation of individuals to strive for goal attainment. The fourth is the reward structure. People and groups will modify undesirable behavior and repeat desirable behavior when they perceive that the behavior change or repetition is coupled with intrinsic or extrinsic rewards. The type of and degree of response to specific rewards differ from individual to individual and may vary over time.
And the last, we discuss about diagnostic review of the American Concrete Company's dilemma. On a Monday afternoon in the early May, the phone in the Mike Manley office rang. Manley was the partner in charge of the management consulting group of the Prince and Wales CPA firm. On the line was the president of the American Concrete Company, a long-time audit client who seemed very annoyed about the planning, control, and the performance evaluation problems his company was experiencing and the behavioral turmoil they had caused. Since Manley had no expertise in this area, he assigned the investigation to Aldona Inversion, the group's cost and the system specialist. The present assignment was tailor-made for her and she was looking forward to getting involved. When she arrived at ACC, she was briefed by the company's controller, Kurt Nielsen, since the president was out of the town. Inversion asked the vice president in charge of sales, John Miller, why the sales budget was not adjusted as soon as he became aware that the chosen capacity assumptions were completely unrealistic. The vice president in charge of production, Patrick O'Malley, was discussed with both the sales manager and the controller. He blamed the sales manager for not undertaking any market research or using at least a more objective quantitative forecasting technique when deciding on the actually attainable capacity level for the planning cycle. When reflecting on the result of the various interviews and the animosities observed, Inversion decided to scrap the present system and design a new one. After securing the president's permission for the new system and his commitment, Inversion met with the members of his management team and explained the reason for her choice and the benefits it was to provide. At the meeting, it was further decided to charge the sales and production departments for all centrally provided services such as data processing, accounting, and the others. After a heated discussion, it was decided to zero-base all major selling and administrative expense at least once every other year to ensure more realistic budgeting. All executives were to have their assigned tasks completed by mid-August, at which time the progress meeting was to be held. Everything processed according to schedule. Inversion presented her report to the president and his management team and asked them to study the new system carefully and report any omission or ambiguities to her within a week. Back in her office at PW, Inversion reflected on her completed assignment. She was convinced that she had performed well and that she had solved the problems that had caused such animosity within the top management team. By working together, in the standard cost system design stage, they had learned to understand each other's needs. They realized that they all share one goal, the growth and well-being of the organization that provide their livelihood. And that's all. We hope you understand about the material that we already present. Thanks for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.